Hey everybody, it's Suzanne, and I'm here for our latest installment of Meet the Maker. And we're going to feature something really different and exciting and special today. So, my friend Nick Sanchez is joining us. He lives here in Bedford, and we always want to thank him for his service because I'm going to let him tell you his whole story. But he is an ex Navy SEAL. Is that the right way to say it?
Yes,
Former.
ma'am. We'll say former. Once a seal, always a seal.
Yeah, exactly. So he has just an amazing background. I've seen pictures of you, when you're in action, and I just always I put you guys on such a pedestal. I'm always just so impressed, and we don't even know, I'm sure, a quarter of what you actually do. So it's just amazing. And now you're, living the civilian life back in Bedford, and you've been very open about some challenges that you've had, and you've created this amazing podcast to help others, other veterans, and it's called Vetted, and we just think it's so amazing. But I want to turn the dialogue over to you for a minute, Nick. So kind of tell us, about your background and your experience as a Navy SEAL.
Sure. Thank you, guys. Susan, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Vetted the podcast. Like you said, I spent about 13 and a half years as an active duty Navy SEAL. I went into the Navy. That was the only job I wanted to do. So I put all my eggs in that one basket. It was either uh, graduate, be a SEAL, or be reacclimated to the Navy to wherever they needed me or wanted me. So I went in with the mindset that I was either going to die trying or they were going to kick me out. So neither one of them happened. So thank goodness, right? Successful deployments to both Iraq, Afghanistan, some European command deployments. Been through training, basically the active duty SEALs in Germany, their version of Special Forces, in Norway, Greece. Had the opportunity to operate up above the Arctic Circle for about a month and a half, which was quite quite impressive with the temperatures up there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we were talking about the water temps in Maine, and Trace had asked me if I'd ever been in any water colder than that, and I just kind of giggled and I was like, yeah, I have.
Yeah.
So 13 and a half years did I made it to the rank of chief. I'd say one of the best times I had as a Navy SEAL was when I was an instructor at SEAL training. So basic underwater demolition SEAL training is the basically training school for SEALs. And I was a shift chief, a safety observer, and a lead instructor for the first 7 weeks of training, which included the infamous Hell Week that everyone hears about. You see on the news, you read about in the papers. Students are up for 5.5 days straight, no sleep, physically taxing evolutions, and lots of visits to the cold water in the Pacific. So injuries led me to want to get out of the service. Had some injuries that required surgery, and I wanted to be able to be a functioning adult at the young age of 40 when I got out of the Navy, and just wanted to be able to enjoy life. So I met Trace, a good friend of yours, and I'd like to say that I used to commute from Virginia Beach up to Bedford for about, I'd say, almost 3 years. It was about a 9.5 hour drive one way, and did that. I think Trace could tell you the numbers, about maybe 70 trips I made back and forth.
Wow.
But absolutely worth it. And then, so I got out. I transitioned out of the Navy 2019 and began working for a defense contracting company up here in Andover, Mass, and which is basically what brought about the beginning of Vetted the podcast. Going through the transition on myself with Trace, I went through a lot of different things. First episode pretty much goes through it, and it's kind of how we've arrived here.
Yeah, I mean, and 13 and a half years, that really struck me, Nick. I mean, is that a long time to be a Navy SEAL? I mean, that feels like a lifetime. I feel like I usually hear of a couple years. So is that kind of a longer term than most might have as an actual Navy SEAL?
There are some, they've actually had longer terms. It was one of those things where I went in, obviously it was post 9/11. I joined in 2006, and still active duty SEALs out there that have been in for 20 plus years, some 30 plus years. It all depends. Obviously, the higher you go in rank, and the more responsibilities you get, the less operational you become, because you're more of a strategist at that time. You're making plans, you're planning operations, and you're basically taking on the responsibility for entire platoons, troops, or actual SEAL teams.
But like in the places you mentioned, I'm like, that's like a lifetime, So, and I imagine even when you're at that high ranking, I mean, you're still, you're still not sitting in an office in, Bedford. You're going to be deployed, all
Yeah.
over the place. So yeah. So let's talk about. I mean, again, because I've followed you, since you've been with Tracy and kind of transitioning your life, and I know even watching you during COVID, like you guys opened my eyes to so many things. I remember you talked about once, like how when you're, in the military, it's like you're always trained to kind of be like, well, who's the enemy, and what am I looking out for? And then you come back into the civilian world, and it's COVID, and it's kind of like, well, now everybody's the enemy. I remember you had a post about
Right.
that, and it really struck me, because it's like it was such an insecure time for everybody, and I think you really brought to light like that's the daily life. If you're, in combat, or even not, you think it's peace times, but it never really is. So just that sort of mindset of what it's like to be in the military, and then now to transition back. And I've seen a lot of friends go through what you've been going through, where, like it's like their life and their family, and now all of a sudden you're yanked out of that, and it's a difficult transition. So tell us a little bit about that, and what led you to to start this podcast, and kind of what topics I mean, everybody can go back and start to follow along and listen, but sort of what the goal of it is, and what really inspired you to start it.
Sure. So I think I mentioned before, Suzanne, is that going through the transition process myself, I'm still in the middle of it. We're going on 2 years now, and there's still some struggles and some challenges that I'm going through myself. And Trace and I were sitting here one day in the office as I was logging on for work, and I think we were scrolling through Facebook or LinkedIn, and she brought up the idea. She's like, "Hey, why don't we have discussions with other veterans about their transition? Let's start looking into if there's something out there that's talking about the parts of transition that aren't just about getting a new job, or how to write resumes, or how to sit through an interview. There's a lot that is involved with transition that isn't really discussed, and I feel like it's almost taboo, because the mental aspect and the emotional aspect that we as veterans go through isn't discussed, because when we're in the thick of it, when we're actually on active duty, we're taught to you push through everything. Emotions can get you killed, or get people hurt. So that mentality follows us as we're transitioning out, and now things that we're not accustomed to, such as dealing with emotional issues at home, places where we haven't been in a long time,
Mm-hmm.
or the mental challenges with trying to find a job, where we were leaving someplace where we were at the top of our game, we were the subject matter experts, and now we're trying to go into a field where we're being looked at as someone trying to step into certain roles that we're not filling them in a specific way that we're not used to, and it's a huge hit on our confidence, and people don't really want to talk about that, because that mentality, just push through it, don't talk about it, has followed us into where we are now.
Yeah, that's it all makes perfect sense, right? But it's and I think times have changed for the better, where people are more open. Like maybe if this was even 5 or 10 years ago, there would be no discussions, and there wouldn't be this forum to be able to share it. But blessedly, I think so much more has come out in the open the past couple of years. But I always, with having the Bedford VA right here, I really always try to follow sort of what's going on, and I'm always, I have a huge heart for and a huge appreciation for veterans. And I think it's so underserved, and these things, like you said, it's hard to talk about, and it's hard to be like, hey, I'm the tough guy, but that this is the role you wanted me to be, and now I'm supposed to all of a sudden be this way, and it's not okay. Yeah. Oh, it's like you can see it unfolding. It's really, really, really tough. And there's not, like you're not trained in that aspect of it. So have you found through your discussions and your network, have you found a lot of other people like yourself that are like, yes, like they totally are going through the same thing?
I have. So the first two episodes that don't include mine and Trace's story. So we only have the 3 episodes out. One of them was an Air Force veteran, Rob, and the other one, Kyle, was another SEAL as well. When we were having these conversations, when I was looking for veterans to sort of share their story and talk to me about what transition looked like for them, the overwhelming response I've gotten was, how come nobody's done this in the past? Nobody's wanting to talk about this. And it obviously, when Trace and I had mentioned this, we started looking to see if there were support groups, if there were other podcasts, if there were websites, and there's nothing out there dealing with the mental and emotional portions of transition, not just for the veterans, but for their family as well, because the families go through the transition right there side by side with the veteran. And there are certain groups that may be out there to sort of help a veteran transition through, but what Vetted does is it helps normalize the stories, and it helps the families understand they're not in this alone, and they're not the only ones who are going through this, because what was not normally talked about is now starting to get out there. And the feedback I've gotten from several veterans, even friends that I haven't talked to in years, I get random text messages from phone numbers like, dude, this is so and so, this is John, this is Andrew, started listening to your podcast, this is amazing, you're doing great work, more of this needs to happen. And I'm like, great, give me a call, let's talk about it, put you on an episode and tell your story. Because the more we talk about it, the more it makes it okay for the other veterans to say, I'm not messed up, it's okay to feel like this, because we're all feeling it.
Well, totally. And I know, like even personally going through, some tough things, and I find like I tend to kind of spiral, and I tend to just get more and more like, oh, I don't want to bother someone, or I don't want to do this or that. And that's the least healthy way to go about it, where if all of a sudden, you can find some glimmer of yourself in somebody else, and you can see, well, this person is now here, it's very inspirational. And I think the more, open people are to have those conversations, because like I said, I put you on a pedestal, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, like, but everybody has their challenges in life. And no matter how, you might revere somebody or their occupation or what they've done, it doesn't mean that they're not, suffering in some way, or they've had their own challenges. And, and to share that, that story, because obviously to be a Navy SEAL, I mean, you have this amazing capacity, and it's like, okay, how can now we help through this turmoil, and then have that capacity, be able to continue in a really healthy way? Is there somebody that you have really looked up to, like, somebody that's opened up to you, or one of someone that you've known through the SEALs that kind of made it through and is an inspiration?
Absolutely. So actually, one of my mentors, that he was actually the recruiter that I went through, that actually put me into the Navy to go to BUDS to become a SEAL. He was a SEAL. He was a first base instructor as well. And he had these groups set up on the weekends where he would bring all the candidates that were wanting to become SEALs or any other special warfare type jobs in the military. And he would work with them. He would train them. He would run them through PT tests. And then, what he liked to call fun. Mm-hmm. He would basically give us a little taste of what training would look like. And this, became him and I becoming super close friends, and him waking up at 5:30 in the morning, meeting me on a base to basically take the training he was doing on the weekends and give me my own personal training through the weeks leading up to me getting into the Navy. Wow. And he listened to the first episode, and he gave me a call, I'd say maybe 2 days after it came out. And to hear him say to me that it humanized us, that it everyone has this, like you said, mm-hmm. An idea of what a SEAL is, or a Green Beret, whatever, special forces, you're up on this pedestal
Mm-hmm.
and you are untouchable. But what he said, and it allowed him to feel vulnerable enough to tell me, someone that I've been looking up to for the last basically 20 years of my life, it humanized us. It let us be vulnerable enough to say, I've dealt with these things too. He was telling me when he got out of the military, I think active duty, I want to say it was right before 9/11. He was spending 20 out of 24 hours a day sleeping in his dad's house because he didn't know what he wanted to do. He couldn't explain the loss of identity, the sense of just sort of emptiness. And it was it was a moment for me to sit back in a chair and hear this coming from someone that I looked up to and I idolized. It was tremendous.
No, that's it's always like, like those that have gone before, and learning from those examples and having somebody, just being like you said, it's being vulnerable and opening up.
Right.
And what can, I mean, obviously, like, a big part of why I want to share your story and share the podcast is we want to get out to as many veterans and families as possible. But one thing I've always loved about Bedford is I feel it is a town with so many military ties. We have Hanscom, we have the VA. For such a small town, that's pretty unusual. So, what can we do as a community? I mean, what needs do you see? Obviously in supporting this podcast, but just as like sort of the community at large, like what would you like to see happen?
Honestly, Suzanne, I think the biggest and best thing that we as a community can do is just help pass the word. You know, this this podcast isn't just for me. It absolutely helps me in dealing with my transition and helping me deal with some of the things that the challenges that I'm encountering. But getting the word out there to as many veterans and veteran spouses and partners and children of veterans that we can, so they have someone to listen to their story, and then open up and talk to someone about their story, because that's what's missing, is the opportunity to have conversations. And if we can get the word out, and if we can save one veteran, it's a success. It's a win for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, and sharing resources too. So I'm sure as you're building this, like this is what's going to be so amazing to watch, is you're going to become such a go-to person. So anytime someone's like, Nick, I met somebody and they have this need, and then who to connect them to, and it's like that the whole power of that network is going to be amazing. And whatever we as a community can do, to tie in and help support. I mean, anytime I see something that's like a veteran-owned business, or that's, supporting veterans in any way, shape, or form, I'm always, all in, because I think it is such a win-win. And it's crazy, like something I'm learning, I'm 43, and I hear a lot of my friends that I grew up with in Bedford that, went into the military and now they're retiring. It's like, it's funny to think that you're retired from the military at 40, but you have so much of your life left ahead of you. So it's just really figuring out, like, what does that next chapter look like, and how can you, figure out who you are, and what that looks like, and feel like you have the support, of your loved ones in your community, and especially, being in, I can only imagine, I've only seen TV shows. I'm a huge Homeland fan. Okay. But I mean, just even a glimpse into what that, like we'll never know what your life was like, but just that little glimpse of the sacrifices, that you've all made. I mean, it's we just can't comprehend on a daily basis. So I absolutely love what you're doing. Is there anybody that you want to be connected with that maybe this community might know, or you just want us to have anybody that that's been through what you're going through, or knows somebody and can reach out and can just spread the word through through their social media? I mean, this is how these things just take off. It's just like, it just goes kind of viral in a good way.
Absolutely. In any sort of publicity, any sort of resharing of posts, of episodes, our email address that we can be reached at is vettedthepodcast@gmail.com. Even if there's veterans or spouses that don't want to do an episode, giving them that opportunity to talk to someone and connect with someone that can share their experiences, or who have shared their experiences, it gives them the ability to share. And I'm sure you're familiar with the 22 a day, the 22 veterans a day that on average are taking their own lives.
I did
It's
not know that. That's horrible.
Yeah, and that's, I would say that's a low figure, a low estimate, just given the numbers that aren't reported.
Right.
And like I said, if we can save one veteran or one family member that is not going to go down that dark rabbit hole and do something that is irreversible, it's a win. So getting the word out, word of mouth, talking to anyone, resharing posts, it's all huge. And like I said earlier, the amount of feedback we've gotten is tremendous, and it's very eye-opening because it is normalizing for so many people in such a short amount of time that we've been around.
Yeah, and you have the Facebook group, and then you're on LinkedIn, and the podcast you're saying can be downloaded on any, Spotify,
Right.
iTunes.
Anywhere you want to listen to your podcast, it's out there. Obviously the large ones are Spotify, iTunes. I want to say Google Podcasts, and there's some other small ones, as well as we always put a link up on the Facebook page and LinkedIn to the actual Buzzsprout is the software that we use to host, so you can listen to it there as well.
That's so cool. We absolutely love what you're doing, and we want to, we'll continue to spread the word, and anything we can do, let us know. And on a fun note, what? So you've got you're going up to Maine a lot this summer. Bring the dog, and try to get away a little bit. So what's on the horizon for the summer? Like, is that the biggest kind of excitement?
I think so.
Post-COVID days, you can maybe go and not wear a mask.
Definitely is. Getting up to Fry Island, where we go up in Maine, it's just a phenomenal time away from reality. You hop on a little ferry. It's a 7-minute ferry ride.
So cool.
And you just feel unplugged from everything, and you just get back to nature the way things are supposed to be, surrounded by good people. Maybe take the boat out a few times to get up there for the holidays, for the 4th of July, Labor Day weekend, Memorial Day weekend coming up. Just anything to help kind of get back to some sort of normalcy.
Totally. I wish summer was like 8 months long. I think I'm living in the wrong climate, because like I want to try to like skiing and stuff, but I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm much more of a boat kind of summer person. So I'm excited.
We're definitely not skiers. I think the closest we come to snow is when we're shoveling it in the driveway here in Bedford.
Yeah, exactly. When it's work, and not fun. But the weather's turning out. It's all good. Yes. All right, last question. Shoot. Favorite flavor ice cream at Bedford Farms?
Ooh. So Trace gives me a lot of flack for this, because I tend to stick with very plain, very normal flavors. I don't like a whole lot going on. But I would have to say it is either Toll House or Cherry Bomb.
Oh, okay. All right. Those are both excellent choices. And there is one now, a special, I forget what it's called, but Ryan usually only likes like the vanilla and the, the kind of basic ones too. He's like, why mess with a good thing? But they have like a sweet cream with Lucky Charms in it or something. And he's trying to like, eat healthy for the summer, but yet I see him sneaking that in, quite a bit. I don't know. Could definitely be worth checking out. But Nick, we're going to be following your podcast very, very closely, and really excited to watch it take off. I think what you're doing is so commendable and so needed. And I really appreciate you always, you guys are always very open and honest, and it's very refreshing, and you are going to help so many people. And honestly, I mean, to be candid too, I mean, you're going to help people that aren't vets as well. I mean, it's opening up and talking about, mental health and wellness. And again, people that might have thought that you guys were totally invincible, being like, well, wait a minute, this person, had this amazing career, and they're having a hard time, and maybe someone will identify in a different way. So I just think that getting discussions going is huge.
we've heard from people who have family members who are first responders, who are EMTs, who are cops,
Yeah.
Anyone who has gone through a major transition, that they're afforded an opportunity to do something that they love for so long, and then they lose that, and they lose that sense of identity that they've carried with them for such a long period of time. It's going to take a mental toll on people. So hopefully, this isn't, long run. This starts opening up to people who have issues with transitioning, and just want to talk about it.
Totally. Yeah. It's so inspirational, because yeah, it's, and you're right. I think anytime you're in sort of like that, brotherhood or sisterhood, or, when you're in the type of career that is your life, I mean, you're traveling, you're overseas, you're with this same team, constantly. And then all of a sudden it's like you're dropped into another universe. I can't imagine. It is a huge change. So yeah, I think it is. It's going to be identifiable with a lot of people, but absolutely, to tap into the veterans, into that community. I just think it's amazing. So keep up the awesome work, and may you have many days in the hopefully getting warmer water up in Maine. You have to like whip out your old wetsuit, or whatever you would wear.
Absolutely. We were actually joking about that this week, and I was like, if I go swimming, I'm gonna jump on the wetsuit, and then someone's gonna think that there's wild seals, literal seals, attacking the beach. So we'll have to see what happens there.
And after seals come sharks.
Yep.
So
there you go.
That's always the talk down the Cape. But thank you for your time. This has been awesome, and we'll have all the links for everybody to jump on and connect with your Facebook group, and connect on LinkedIn, and start subscribing to the podcast, and
Absolutely,
and sharing and interacting with you guys. So,
yes.
Thank you again, and
thank you so much for the opportunity, Suzanne. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. No, I'm huge fan of you and the family. So really appreciate it, Nick. And more to come, guys. So thank you, Nick. And we'll be checking out the Vetted podcast. So thanks, and take care.
Thank you.